G'day guys, welcome to Life on the Hulls. As you can see, there's a lot going on here. I've almost got half a house here, and I'm starting to put in some robes and really getting into the shelving and start to think about all the niceties, and hopefully you know, take a little bit away from some fiberglassing. But ultimately there's a lot of foam going into this boat, not a lot of wood. I've still got my templates and everything, but I'm trying to make it all foam, all lightweight, all really top quality composite. This week I'm going to put the starboard forward cabin robe in place and start to frame it up from behind, and that's really important so that those modules can be as light and as thin as possible, so that they're actually supported by the hull and plenty of bracing within, so that I can then work out the framework for my robe petitions and all the stuff that has to go in behind them. And I'm also going to put in the starboard dogleg bulkhead in the midsection of the boat as well, which butts up against the internal, the chamfer panel module. So there's a lot coming up in this episode, a lot of work and a lot of heavy lifting again. That seems to be boat building. So thanks for joining me. Don't forget to give it a like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to jump over to the Composite Shop channel, because that's actually, there's 7 episodes up there now, particularly 7 of them up on Patreon. I think there's now 4 to 5 of them up on YouTube that you can watch on the kayak build all the way through. Let's get into it. Lots of boat building to do. Okay, so now I've removed the peel ply and I actually glassed this. I filleted it 2 days ago, completely tabbed this bulkhead and the forward bulkhead in yesterday. So technically I should be able to remove this strap now. Now I've still got a measurement from here over to this main central bulkhead here, and this strap's holding it in place, but I should be able to remove that now, and that's what I'm going to do, and hopefully that is going to hold it in place. There's no reason why it wouldn't. It's pretty much as solid as it could ever be. If it tears off the bulkhead, then I know I've got bigger problems, but I don't care if the mould now releases, as long as the product inside the mould doesn't. And that's technically what I'm aiming to do, is let this pressure off the strap here. There's only about this much it's pulling in, but it will let the mould itself release a bit, and again furthering release of the actual product, or the boat out of the hull. There's no movement at all there. That means my bulkhead's actually held, and the whole mould will have separated slightly from the actual hull. Now I'm just going to show you what I mean by releasing on the hull sides. Because the outside of the mould is reasonably flexible, the supports that holding the mould supports are, you know, they're pretty old. They've had a lot of weight on them over the years. I'm just going to show you what sort of release I actually have. I did about a year and a half ago, I think I showed you where the hull side had flexed from the mould itself, but I'm just going to highlight that right now that I've released this strap. It's actually even more prominent. Okay, so looking along the line here, you can see this red part, that's the mould, and this is the boat. I'm just holding it here while I squeeze it. You can see the amount of movement there. That's released from the hull itself. And again from back here. That, my friends, is a very good sign. You can see how this is released back now that I've taken the pressure off this. So this is now in place and the mould's separate. I'm now going to position this module back down in here, primarily to get it out of the way, but also to start working out what I'm going to need to do to fit it down in there. So that's going to be a bit of an effort to lift that in. See how flexible these things are. For now, what's going to form the basis of the structure is I'm going to do some slight reinforcement around where all of the cupboard openings are, and particularly on areas of corners, anywhere that needs reinforcement. But I'm not going to beef them up too much. It's simply going to have another layer of 600 double bias, and that's going to be enough. I've seen a lot of modules in some cats that are basically, you know, 6-7 millimeters thick of just chopper gunned chop matting, and these are actually reinforced fabric modules. There's only 2 layers of 300 on them. And then 2 layers of 600. So ultimately they're pretty strong. They're quite flexible, but then there'll be composite angle holding them in place to lock them down, all epoxied in, all glued down, and then faired and finished. So I've got a method, I'm just going to stick with that all the way through, and that way ultimately I'm going to end up with a really nice, strong, and more importantly, lightweight product. Within about that much. I've got about 15 millimeters by the look of it on the end here, which basically once I put the composite angle, the module is then laid on top, will give me a gap to fillet and then fillet tab with a small sort of 50 mil wide tape, and then I'll be able to fair it and done. That's brilliant. Now, because I'm working blind in here, what I need to do is I need to put some composite angle underneath along this here to support it, here and down this vertical, and I am working blind. What I don't want to do is I don't want to guess where that needs to be, so it means that I need to cut a hole in the front of this, this module here. Now, this actually is a cupboard space, so if I drill a hole around about the midsection, at least I know that that ultimately is going to be a cupboard or a doorway for access to shelving in behind. So this hole saw gives me enough room to get my arm in, to do some pencil lines on the wall, to make sure that I get this angle in exactly the right place. And similarly over here, I can actually get over the top here and down this line here. So I've worked out this one here, but I need to put another hole here so that I can actually draw a line underneath the back here, and also another one over here so I can get to this down here for these uprights. Just an easy way of getting it done. I know it's going to be cut out to make a wardrobe. I've just got to make it far enough in to make sure that I allow myself room for that wardrobe door. So I've now got a vertical here. I'm going to put a composite angle going down there, another one along here, another one there, and another one there. So what you got to remember here is that this wall isn't straight, it's actually got a curve in it. So what I'll do is I'll just curve this slightly. I'll cut a couple of slots in it just to allow it to bend a little bit, and then I can get it to fit pretty much precisely in place where I need it to. So that needs to go there. I had a couple of comments the other day about using self tappers into the foam. I'm using a 16mm long self tapper, and this foam is 20 mil thick, plus it has about 4 to 5 mils of glass on either side of it. So I think I'm pretty right and justified in using them just to tack it into place and find the position for them. Ultimately that gets filled with epoxy. When I glue this angle on, it's basically going to screw it in place and fill that foam core. Although probably not even a problem, I'm making sure that I'm covering my bases all the time. So I'm basically just going to put one in here. Now, I'm not actually penetrating the whole side here, hopefully. Now because I can reach in and feel, I can feel that all the contacts and surfaces are actually contacting each other. If I didn't have those holes there, I wouldn't be able to do that. It's absolutely. So the one thing I'm going to have to do is where I've got this upright over here, I'm going to have to run one along the bottom here to stop it from caving in. So I'm just balancing up here, but one along the bottom here. Now right in the bottom here I'm intending to have some pumps for the water and for the discharge, or for the macerator for the blackwater tank. I may well decide not to put it in here because it is a bedroom, but for now those angles are spot on. I would be flat out lying to you if I didn't tell you that how much I love this composite angle. Look, I know it's probably a massive shortcut, but why not? You know, I have saved myself so much time. So you can see here I've actually got it reinforced at the bottom. I've done all of the cleating around the outside here, and this basically, this module has now been reinforced, and I've got them along the floor here and all the way along in all the vital areas. And what that's also given me is the framework for putting in some shelving. So in here we're going to have 2 shelves. In the wardrobe section here there'll be a hanging robe and probably a vertical store for Janet's dresses or whatever we decide to put in it. And down in the bottom there I'm hoping to put some pumps. But now I've actually established the size and essentially the frame of the inside of the wardrobes. I can then put those in without the module in, and that's just going to save me so much time. And then just basically put glue all over these surfaces, all over these angles here, and just go and plop that module in place, do some filleting, do some tabbing, gel coat it, polish it up, done. Look, it's just been an incredible piece of technology for me to use. I mean, I've done this section in about an hour. And although it looks a bit rough once it's all glued in and all tabbed properly, it's going to look absolutely fantastic. That's how I'm done. Okay, I'm going to do a test fit of the big master suite module. But I do need to sit this in place just to make sure that everything is still square as I intend it to be. So I'll get this back in. Happy to see that it's absolutely fitting to perfection in place here. Probably just a little bit high here. Okay, so an essential part of this dog leg bulkhead, basically its elbows here and goes across the back of this module. I'm going to put this one in place and glass it in. I'm not going to put the final piece in place just so I can allow trafficking back and forth up into the forward area without having to go down the stairs. But more importantly, getting this one in place means that I can start to outfit underneath here, work out where my conduit lines and everything are going to fit. But I'm going to basically fillet this and tab it in one hit. So my main compression bulkhead actually goes across from the port side across the boat, and then it dog legs and then goes straight, and that's what this one is here. So this particular component here is only a small piece, but it's fairly essential because it's actually what this module backs up against, and it's what my dinette module backs up against as well. So by putting this part in place, I'm able to then determine the underneath shelving and cupboardry underneath this master suite module as well. It's a simple filleting process, but it is on an angle. It's actually on an angle down the chamfer panel, and then a vertical that butts up to the main bulkhead. So I can pretty much complete this bulkhead. Now this section here that I'll show you right now is going to be left open for the time being. It's a pretty easy piece of tabbing to be done, but it's going to be left open so that I can traffic back and forth into the front of the modules and into those front cabins. Now I put some packing tape on the back of the module because I don't want to stick it to the bulkhead. Very important, that packing tape will just peel off, but it's been pretty quintessential to the process that I'm working with here. By backing this, it's no chance it's going to stick. So I've got a good fill in behind there because that's actually absolutely filled in there. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a little bit more of that filleting compound, and then I'll use my radius tool just to get a good radius, and then I'll be able to simply tab that in place. And before it all goes hard, I'm going to get in behind underneath the module through the armhole I got there and just try to tidy it up a bit, save myself a lot of work at the end. See here how neat this fillet is. Now while this is wet, I'm going to get a cloth on the bottom here and tab this bottom part, and basically just make sure that's all tied in wet on wet. While I'm doing small areas like this, I can certainly do that. I'm going to have to remove this peel ply though, which I thought wish I'd removed before I put it in, but anyway I didn't, so that's what I'm going to have to do now. All right, now that's all done. That's filleted and tabbed on this side. I'm just going to go in underneath through the armhole in the module and just make sure that I haven't got any running drips of resin that have gone through that fillet, but should be okay. I did actually tidy it up beforehand. Yeah, so just going to have a look through here. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So you can see up in there, I've got pretty much already formed a good fillet there. Now I'm not going to be able to glass that through this module. I'm going to wait until that sets and then come back this afternoon and tidy that guy up, up underneath. But yeah, that's done. I'll be able to remove that cleat in about an hour or two and get on to filleting this side and get it finished as well. Thought I'd done a good job reaching through that module, through that armhole over there, this armhole here, and tidying up the fillet behind this this bulkhead, but clearly wasn't good enough. That's as rough as it. So what I'm going to have to do is get my sander and give it a good, try to get a good fillet line or a good radius on it, and I may even have to add some more filleting compound. But for now, that bulkhead is in place. And the great thing is that module's lifting up and out all the time, so it's really easy to lift it out and do any sort of restorative work that I need to do. But what I'm going to do down in here is there's going to be, this is actually the countertop on the module up there, but in here there'll be a shelf level with here that'll come out to here, and another one here. So this will be two shelf units, or a shelf unit within the module, and then I'll have conduits running underneath it, also another one along the back of one of the shelves. But pretty easy. I can now fill in this section with shelving and complete it all, and then just sit the module over top, basically glue it on to the epoxy angle here, and that job will be done. And then all I've got to do really is the woodwork on the front. So I've got a bit of a method in my mode here, and it all seems to be coming together really nicely. So I'm going to get on to sanding this fillet. I'm going to tidy it up, I'm going to fillet it, I'm going to tab it, and I'm going to get this bulkhead finished.